I'm Mackenzie Kratzsch, and this is my class on hosting a successful show on The Rabbit Show.
Joining us for this class on hosting a successful show is Mackenzie. She has been a leader for a number of shows in the Northeastern United States. She has planned, organized, and ran 13 shows as the president, show secretary, and superintendent for the Garden State Rabbit KV Breeders Association. She's also the president of Catskill Region RCBA in New York for 3 years, and they have put on 4 shows, or she's put on 4 shows with this club. She's been raising rabbits since 2007, where she got her start and interest in rabbits and 4-H, just like many of us within the hobby. Welcome, Mackenzie, and we're excited to have you on and focus on this topic.
Thanks, David, for having me.
Thank you. So kicking things off, how would you describe a successful show?
A successful show, I would describe it as a show where the judges are happy, the exhibitors are happy, it is well timed, we get out of there at a decent time, you start on time, and everybody just, flows along with the show. So a good flowing show is definitely a successful show.
Okay. So looking at the timeline for planning shows and being able to have a successful event, I know that there's a lot of work that goes into the pre-planning or pre-show phase. So what are some of the things that you do within your club and that your club does when focusing on putting on a show?
So one of the first things that we do is we secure our venue. Our fairgrounds that we use is a very happening place. So that definitely has to be secured well in advance in order for us to get the buildings that we need to host a successful show. Our next thing that we do is we work on getting our judges. I normally try and plan judges out years in advance in order to get those judges that are well sought after. And we always try to mix up our judging lineup. We have some of our consistent ones, but then we try to change it up. So that's definitely all goes into the pre-show planning as well. And then choosing our awards for the show as well.
Like what do you guys do to focus on awards, and like how do you know how many to actually buy, for a club that was looking at wanting to host a show? Like how do you even know those kind of things?
We kind of go based on what is sanctioned or what we normally have sanctioned. Now that we've been running several shows, we look at, the year before what was sanctioned around that time of year. Things have been super crazy because of COVID right now. Things that normally aren't sanctioned or are sanctioned aren't. It kind of depends on what those breeders are doing right now because of COVID and RHD as well, of what exhibitors feel comfortable with. We also, when we first started, we looked at area shows to see what they had sanctioned and kind of got our numbers based off of that. So that's how we kind of look at what we order for those.
So you guys end up using the sanction, like breeds that are sanctioned is the ones that you end up giving awards out to. Is that, for best of breed, best opposite?
Correct.
Okay.
And then if another breed has 10 or more, we will also give them awards. We're not really like stingy on awards as far as like if there's, not, if it's not sanctioned, you only get a rosette. We always order extra. So that way the next show will be some of the same awards and some new awards. So people have options, so we tend to not be a stingy club on awards and, pick and choose who gets.
Very cool. That totally makes sense. So diving into some of those aspects you were talking about more. So how do you get an ARBA sanction? Like, what's the actual process?
So getting an ARBA sanction, there's a couple different processes. You can either do it by mail and send in a hard copy form, or you can also use their online portal to order it that way. My mom is our secretary treasurer for the club. She's not really great with the computer. So if I don't want to be stuck doing it, she does it the paper format. So we mail it in. It has to be mailed in 30 days before the show. Granted, if you want to secure your sanction, there cannot be another show within, I believe it's 150-mile radius of your show. So if you want to secure your date and secure your location, you definitely want to make sure you get that in far in advance. Right now, our show's been so close together that we've been really slacking with that. But normally, we'll have our sanction in for a specific date 2 years in advance.
Digging a little deeper. So there's the ARBA sanction, then there's national breed club sanctions, there's state breed club sanctions, there's state sanctions or regional club sanctions. What do they all mean? How do you guys and you already said kind of how you guys decided, but like what does it all mean for somebody that's an exhibitor wanting to show at your show?
So national breed sanctions are each breed. So for example, I'm a Dutch breeder. I'll use Dutch as the example. So each breed has their cost for sanctioning the breed, whether it's youth or open separate. Some do a combination, some do. The cost is youth free with an open paid sanction. So what I always remind exhibitors, a lot of times we will ask for donations because then that guarantees that the breed will be represented at the show. And those exhibitors that are paying the sanction will a lot of times solicit their fellow exhibitors to come because they paid for it. So we do sometimes ask for donations. When we ask for donations of national breed sanctions, I always remind everybody if it says that open is $10, that means if it's a double show, that's $20 for the show. A lot of people see that $10 and they think that's how much it is. So national breed sanctions can get very costly. There's some of the breeds that are super expensive to sanctions, such as mini Rex and Netherland dwarfs are some of the higher priced ones. French and English slop is higher, but you get 2 breeds with that sanction, as well as mini satin and satin. Those are considered one club. So they're a little bit higher, but you get 2 breeds with that sanction. So we definitely have had exhibitors that will, all pool together and say, sanction the whole weekend, and they split it between 3 exhibitors. We're good with however, but national breed sanctions get filed almost the same way as ARBA sanctions. You print out a form, or some clubs, you can do it online on their website. You provide them your ARBA sanction numbers and you send the fee that you, whatever the fee is for that club.
And what that means for the exhibitor too is, what do they get if an exhibitor shows in the show and their breed is sanctioned? What does an exhibitor get if they are a member of that club, that like the American Dutch Club, for example?
So if you, so I always tell people, I even tell my 4-Hers all the time, they want to like sanction breeds, and I'm like, you don't need to. In order for the breed to be shown, it doesn't have to be sanctioned. You can still get ARBA legs if the breed is not sanctioned. However, if you are a member of, say, the National Dutch Club, you want to make sure that the shows that you're showing at are sanctioned if you're competing for points. So if the show is sanctioned, you then in return get National Breed Club points because of that. But again, like I said, if you're not competing for points and you're just worried about legs, the breed doesn't need to be sanctioned and you can still earn your ARBA legs.
Yeah, and that points aspect is that they're going after it's like the national ranking system or such of within each one of those within each one of those sweepstakes competitions, whether it's accumulation of points or accumulation of how well you had done throughout the year. Agreed.
Yep.
Okay, and that leads to the next question, which you already said. If an exhibitor owns a breed and that breed isn't sanctioned, can they show it? I think that's by far one of the most common questions that I hear that most people have. And I mean, can you just repeat what you said?
I've had well-seasoned exhibitors that don't realize that just because your breed isn't sanctioned, you can still show it. That just means all you're going to get is legs. You're not going to get points towards your national club. So still show it.
Yep. So you said that the location that you guys like having your shows at is a really happening place, and so you have to book it really far out in advance. How do you guys choose where you have a show at, and what date you want to have it and such?
So our show location is actually a really nice location. We're kind of like off the beaten path to a point, but we're also where we are in New Jersey. We border Pennsylvania and New York very locally. We're also really close for Massachusetts and Connecticut as well. So we're kind of in a really nice location where we are, that it's kind of not too far of a distance for anybody. So the location is definitely really important as far as, making sure that there's things in the area for people to do if they come the night before, that there's places for people to eat, hotels for people to stay. Our location also allows camping during, the seasonal time, and we have showers available and really nice bathrooms for our campers to use as well. So all of that goes into planning with our show location, and we're really lucky with where we host our show. As far as our date, we try and keep our consistent dates every single year as far as when we host our shows. Again, due to COVID, it's been a little crazy. We've added shows since other clubs, especially in New York, have not been able to have shows. And our fairgrounds has been very lax about how things have been, but still sticking to our standards of New Jersey as well. But our date, we try hard, even if it is, say that 100-mile radius that ARBA is, or whatever the mile is, we try to make sure we don't step on anybody's toes. We don't want to, make people have to choose between our show or another show and cut into the other show's profit or cut into our profit, loss, gain, whatever it may be. It also divides up the amount of judges that you are able to get. So a date is, really important. You want to make sure that there's not too many shows within a short period of time, because then it makes people pick and choose as well. So we try and spread out and not have shows on top of us or near us at those dates.
So how do you guys decide how many judges you want to hire and what judges you would hire?
All right. So judges have been a task lately. As what I would normally hire for a show, with COVID, I was begging for judges because we were having shows with like record-breaking numbers for us. We do host some of the largest shows in the area, but I've since went back down to what I've looked at from our past years. I try and gauge it from past year's numbers and what I think that, the popularity of the event's going to be and how many breeds we have sanctioned. So I look at all that stuff when I decide to hire judges. I try not to have to let judges go, as, they have kind of budgeted for that in, their monthly planning of what they're doing, or they've maybe said no to another show because they were hired at our show and I don't want to cancel them. So I try to, only hire what I know I'm going to need or use everything I need. If we get out early that day, we get out early. So that's how we figure out how many judges to hire. As far as who we hire, like I said earlier, we try to make it diverse. I try to bring in, a lot of shows have a lot of the same judges year in and year out. I have a few of my, they'll be there every year. They were the people that were there when we started the club, helped us to start the club, our backbones to every show. But I try to mix it up and bring in judges that we don't always see in our area. And because our shows are larger, I try and give our exhibitors the opportunity to have those judges that we don't have at the more local shows as well.
So what's the process for hiring them? Like, I mean, obviously I know I'm a judge as well. And, but what do you guys do to hire them? Do you send emails? Do you do phone calls, Facebook messages? How do you guys end up communicating with judges to hire them?
So I try and keep the hiring of the judges as professional as possible, because we are hiring them, and I try and maintain a level of professionalism with them. So I definitely always send an email. I keep a spreadsheet of who I emailed, when I emailed them, when I get a response from them, if I don't get a response from them, if I send them another email. So I keep track of all of that in a spreadsheet, and I always send them a formal email just saying, what our show is. You have to give them details of, if they're a rabbit and kiwi judge, would you expect them to judge rabbit and kiwis? Is it a single show, a triple show? Is it double? Is there specialties involved? All those things kind of go into how they gauge their bids a lot of times. And then I try and wait. It's really hard. A lot of judges, you'll notice, if you haven't put on a show before, a lot of judges take a really long time to respond, or they don't respond. So that tends to be quite the process as far as hiring judges. So I try and wait to get a response back from at least a decent number. Then I check to see who's going to be most cost efficient for the show that we're having. Sometimes we have to splurge and, pay for the higher price judge. And then I respond back, letting them know that we have accepted their bid. We look forward to having them. And then I will follow up then again with an email closer to the show, probably like normally the week of the show or the week prior, reminding them that they're judging our show in case they've forgotten, provide them with the catalog, as well as if they requested a hotel, what their hotel location and address is. So I like I said, I try and maintain a level of professionalism with our judges. I try and do it all via email, but there has definitely been times where it becomes to, oh my gosh, I need more judges, and I'm begging on Facebook or calling or texting judges, even judges that I'm friends with. I will always do it in an email.
So you would say that some of them that are traveling far away, that it's customary, obviously, or picking up their hotel room. I mean, but what would you say, like, normal ranges of bids are, and if you don't want to answer it, completely fine with that too.
So it depends. I mean, I've gotten to know, like, some of our more local judges that are New Jersey are, anywhere from 200 to 300, depending. We are towards the top of New Jersey, and most of our New Jersey judges are mostly South Jersey. So they are still traveling quite a distance. So a lot of what they factor into that is their time, the gas, the mileage, all goes into their bid. So you'll have your more seasoned judges that really pull their weight and judge larger numbers. They'll give a higher amount, just for the sheer fact of that. Some of your newer judges, even though they are traveling a larger area, will be a lower amount. We have some of the new judges from New York that are only charging around like 175 right now. But then we have some judges coming from Ohio that are 600, 650. It really depends on their location, or, sometimes I've had judges that I can kind of tell that they just don't want to bid the show. So they kind of outrageously price themselves, giving away all the secrets here. So it's, some will say, well, if I'm traveling and I'm driving, it's going to be this much, but if you pay for my flight, it'll just be this much. So sometimes fly-in judges can be costly depending on their cost of their flight, or it could be, cheaper because they will normally charge you a lower rate as well.
Okay, so changing gears a little bit, still in the pre-show phase though, how does your club do advertising promotion of your shows?
So a lot of times for advertising and promotion, I bring flyers with, some of the information, whether the judges, what are some of our specialty shows, and I'll bring them to shows that are, before our show that I'm attending. We also have a lot of our committee members that some of them will go to different shows than I go to. So I'll provide them with flyers or send them, and they print them out and we put them at different shows. So we'll do that. I don't really use the ARBA website all that much, just because of the amount of file space that you're able to put on there. If anything, I'll put the flyer up there with a link to our website. Our group has a website, so we publish our catalogs on our website, and any upcoming show dates are on the website and all of that. And a big one is obviously social media. We have our own page. We post the catalog there. I use the other, district in the area, their pages as well to post it. So we definitely use Facebook and social media a lot on that. How did your club get the equipment you guys use for shows, and what type of equipment do you need to host the show? So we started off using our county's 4-H equipment, and we did that for a couple of years till we could get some money in our account to purchase our own. So we have finally purchased, after we started our club in 2015, I think we have now purchased all the equipment we will ever need. So we have lots of equipment we purchased through different companies. We use Pointer Hill and KW Cages, and we fundraise for it. We also have some that is sponsored. So we have some that we've had different breed associations that they've lost a member and they've paid, and we have a plaque on it. We recently had someone in our district pass away that showed and was a big supporter of our show. So the club, actually, we decided as a club, as a thank you, and someone that has always been in support of our show, we had a plaque made and it's shown on our equipment. We've had breeders sponsor it for their rabbitries. And, we had different costs, whether it's front equipment or back equipment or one table, half a table. And we raised some money that way to get our equipment.
This is definitely something that varies, I would say, before COVID and before RHD. But depending on where you're at within the country, there's more pre-entry shows versus day of show entries. What do you guys do, and why do you guys do it the way you do?
We are a pre-entry show. I I need to plan. I am a planner. I am a teacher. I need to know what I'm expecting and have all that planned out. Especially right now with COVID times, we have actually switched to pre-entry only, and only pre-entered exhibitors are allowed to add day of show, just because of the fact of number of exhibitors that we were allowed to have on the property. So that has worked out really well. Even if you just enter 1 or 2 animals, if you're thinking about coming and you enter your rest day of show, we didn't really drastically change our day of show rate for that. So pre-entry is definitely how we do things around here, just to be able to better plan our judging. I know I've been to shows where it's a day of show, and they have all of these extra animals and not enough judges for it. And we've been there till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And that's definitely not something I'm up for. So pre-entry is all the way.
Getting to your showroom and like, how do you guys lay out the showroom? I mean, where do you, like, how do you guys lay out the tables? You know, why do you lay the tables out that way, and how do you guys determine how to set it up?
So in the beginning years, we had the Bell family help superintendent our shows. So we definitely learned some of our ins and outs and how to set up a showroom and do different things from them, and how to maximize space. So, you know, how our showroom has been set up now during COVID times versus before is a little bit different. We're starting to go back to the normal way, but we normally try and do like 2 judging tables butted up together with a writer's table, and then 2 butted up together. So that way it maximizes our show space. Our judging tables are normally against one wall, with then tables going outwards from them for exhibitors to put their cooping or their cages, their travel cages. We have a table set up behind our judges where we put our KW show cooping. So that way, when the rabbits are in the holding coops, they're actually on wire bottom. So they're never sitting in another rabbit's urine or poop or any of that. They're right at the judge's level. The judges really like them, that they can kind of, you know, pick them up and take them out right at their level. None of the rabbits are freaking out. They can lock them in there. No one's getting to each other's faces. So we have the KW cage cooping behind, and then we have regular like winter health cooping on the front level of the table. We also have our PVC legs that are all labeled with different letters on them based on the heights. I've gotten to the point where I know, you know, this judge is an A, this judge is a D, you know, and what everybody needs. So we do that to raise the height of the tables. And then our showrooms, we kind of set them up, you know, recently we've been spreading out more. So I do a lot of the show secretary work. So I know who is showing what breeds, and I try and take that into consideration when I place breeds in certain barns. If I have to switch things, you know, have some breeds in one barn and some in another, you know, I try and make sure that all that exhibitor's breed is in the same barn, so they're not back and forth. And then we do normally have a youth area as well. So we normally choose judges for the youth based on, you know, who's better with the youth.
Like, do you guys do signage, getting to the, you know, pointing towards the showroom, or like, do you guys do anything like that? Like when somebody exhibitors are coming in, or do they just kind of know where it's at?
Most of our exhibitors are pretty well seasoned, and they start the flow of traffic and know how to go. We still do put some signs that point towards the rabbit show. I try not to put anything near the road, just because, you know, I try not to promote that there's a rabbit event going on due to, you know, past experiences with having, you know, animal rights activists show up at events. So I try not to have it anywhere near the road, but once they get in, I try and have signs pointing in different directions. I have even done Facebook Live videos to show them, like, in the car as you drive in, you're going to, you know, make this right turn down this road, and these are the buildings that we're using. I'll post pictures on our Facebook page, you know, these are the buildings that we're using, so they know what they're looking for. Not all of our buildings look exactly the same, so that tends to help them as well. Another thing that we do for signage as well for show day is before the show, I normally, when we've been using multiple barns, I'll post, you know, barn 5 is the youth barn, in barn 4 is the following breeds, and the livestock arena is the following breeds. So everyone knows before they come what breeds are in which barn. So that really helps a lot of the confusion as well, the day of or the night before when they drop animals.
I see. So going through a couple of the roles that are at shows, what's the function of the show secretary? What are some of the basic things they do before the show and then during the show, and then briefly cover what happens like after?
So a secretary, what they do is they receive all of the entries before the show or on the day of the show. So all of ours, we do a pre-entry show. So I get email entries as well as we do still get some mail entries. So I go through and I enter them all into the computer software that we use. After I enter everything, all the exhibitors' entries into the computer, I then send out check-in sheets. So that is basically a review of everyone's entries that they sent in. At that time, I normally put in the little message that they need to send any corrections or changes by a certain day. And at that point, then I cut off any corrections. So I make all the corrections to that, and then I start printing. Once I start printing, I will not take any other corrections after that. I don't like to go shuffling through the folders to make the corrections. So that's kind of, I tell them, once it's past the deadline for corrections or changes, they have to do it at the show, which is normally never a problem with us. We're pretty flexible about that. So we print everything. Everything then gets filed into, we have big files, plastic file cabinet things with all of the folders in it. So everything for us is color coded. I have open has a different color for A, a different color for B, and youth has totally different colors than open. And then I even have a different color for folders. So not only are our folders color coded, but also our paper is color coded. So then that way, if a piece of paper is missing, we know what folder it goes back into without even having to worry about reading what it says on the top. So we do all that. I am lucky enough that my directors all normally come on printing night and I just sit there and print everything and they go through and file it all into the files as we do that. We kind of do that as a group thing since I'm running the show and secretarying everything. It's kind of like an all hands on when it comes to filing. Day of show, I also print out the check-in sheets that everyone's already been emailed. I have them marked on it, whether it's paid or if they owe money. And we have everybody come check in, even though that they printed out their check-in sheet. So that way we know if someone didn't show up or, who to hound for money if they didn't pay already and they didn't show up. So that's a good way. So that way, if someone doesn't show up, the check-in sheet's still there and we go through and we'll scratch their entry out. So that way no one's waiting for them at the tables. During the show, I have another group of people that work the secretary's table for me, which is awesome because I'm superintending the show. So they know everything, where things go, how things get filed. When it comes to day of show entries or changing an ear tag, we have different colored papers that go for A and different colors for B, and it's all in the exhibitors. If they want to enter a day of show, they write it on this day of show paper and it gets filed into the breed folder, and it is they have to do one breed per paper. So everything just gets taken exactly as they write it and put into the folders. And for those of you that show in New York, that's a New York way of doing things for the most part. A lot of the shows do it that way. So we adopted that from them. It works out really well. It's super easy and it all goes back on the exhibitors if they, wrote something wrong. We're not transferring it into the show things that day. And then at the end, we go through and enter all the results, and then show reports get sent to the exhibitors first. Then at making sure that there's no corrections to those, then it gets sent to the breed clubs, and then they also go to ARBA. So it all has to be done within 30 days of the show.
And you kind of hit on this too. I mean, like of what you're doing in show superintendent, but just like brief highlights on that. I mean, like, what's the main function of a superintendent?
So the show superintendent basically goes over, as the show superintendent, I do the judging lineup. So since I'm the show secretary, I have how many of each breed will be there. And I always do my judging lineup based on about 200 rabbits a judge. Judges are allowed to do 250 rabbits in a day. So I always go with 200. So that way, if there's day of show, that can get them up to like 225 or to that 250. So they're not going over that 250. If they do go over that 250, I always make sure I pay attention to how many day of shows that are added so I can change and move things around, or we can compensate the judges for over 250 animals. The show superintendent always makes sure that the show's going smoothly. They make announcements. If anything needs to get changed off a judge's table, they can do that as well. And also if there's any problems during the show. So if a protest is filed or any of that, that would all be the responsibility of the show superintendent to follow through with that. I'm trying to think what else I do. I also have, a great group of assistants that normally help me as well, since I'm doing a million things. So I have other exhibitors that have helped me as well. And our president of the New Jersey State Club will also chip in and help. So we have a good group of superintendents that kind of run around in the different buildings and figure it all out. So.
You kind of already hit on this in terms of how do you determine which breeds. I don't think that I don't think there's anything you have to necessarily add unless you think that there is.
No, not really. I mean, I try and diversify which judges get which breed. I look at, if they were just at our show a month ago, or we just had a show 3 weeks ago, I make sure that that judge isn't judging the same breed, so that they're not always coming to the Garden State show and they always get stuck with the same judge for their breed. That happens a lot at some of the other shows. I feel like they don't change the lineup. So I try to make sure that we're always looking at who they had in the past and changing that up a bit for them.
So what advice would you have for a club looking to host their first show?
Let's see. Advice for a club looking to host their first show. Make sure you take the time to plan and organize. Communication with your exhibitors is key. They are, making your exhibitors happy. It's like customer service. The customer is always right. Make the customer happy. You want your exhibitors coming back. They are, the support of your show. They are what makes your show successful. I always say to hire a diverse option of judges, different judges each year. A lot of times people determine what show that they're going to go to based on the judges that are going to be at that show, as well as the venue, a good quality venue with, good food, decent bathroom, all those things people take into, their decision of whether they're going to attend a show or not attend a show, as well as places for people to stay. So decent hotels at decent prices is always helpful as well.
Slightly different, but for an existing club, what would you say or what advice would you have for an existing club that's looking to host shows with more entries or a larger type of event?
Like I've said time in and time out, the judges make your show. Different judges. The awards is another big thing. People don't want the same old awards all the time. One of my points that I always, want something that's quality and something that's useful. So people look at that when they decide what show as well. So always making sure that you're rotating your judges, you have a quality venue, you offer what you offer your exhibitors, even if it's, sometimes adding a specialty show. A lot of breeders will travel further if they get to show their breed 3 times. A lot of people really don't travel for those single shows anymore. So definitely, adding those specialties helps as well.
You've already kind of touched on this, that, this is the superintendent's thing, but if there's a problem with an exhibitor or a protest, which is the formal process of, questioning an issue that happened at the show. I think that you already covered this. Unless you feel like there's something you want to add to it.
Most problems, if anything comes up, it's normally like, I have a problem with this judge. I don't want this judge. I try and really stick to my guns on not moving breeds from a judge just because, I don't like that judge. I normally need, a better reason than that. So, or, if they tell me in advance, I try and work with people. I really do. But I normally haven't really had any problems. I haven't had any official protest. I'm normally really on what's going on in the showroom. I have had problems with an exhibitor before, and they are actually no longer allowed to show at any shows in New Jersey because of an issue that happened at our show. So, we're very on top of things like that. So.
You've covered all the activities. I know something that's definitely very common at shows is doing raffles. Is that really the only other extra activity you would say that we haven't necessarily covered?
So we do raffles at most of our shows right now because we've been doing so many close together. We aren't doing them at every single show. It kind of depends on if we have the staff. It takes extra staffing to then run those extra activities. We did at our October show, since there wasn't a grand finals and there wasn't a convention, we did a full weekend show and we offered some extra fun things for the kids. The kids really needed to be together. They really needed to have time together. So we did a Halloween party the Saturday night before the Sunday show. We also did a pumpkin decorating contest. At some of the other shows, my New York shows, we've offered some of our older youth have done some breed ID, different things. So it kind of depends on what we have available as far as staffing and who's willing to run something during the show. But we have done showmanship. We've done breed ID for the youth. We've done the pumpkin decorating contest. We've done the raffle table. That's, a time in and time out thing. Some of us will get together and go out to dinner. So, just normal activity stuff.
Okay, so I think that covers all of show day. Is there anything else you want to hit on show day?
I think I hit on all of my things. I think we're good on there.
All right, cool. So after a show gets done, what happens after a show gets done?
So after the show gets done, there's normally lots of cleanup. I always tell my 4-H kids and hope that they grow to be, open ARBA exhibitors and, can pass what they've learned along as far as always help clean up the showroom. Everyone has a drive home or, they have other things to do. So if more hands, it goes so much quicker. I always say, especially, if you're grooming in the showroom, throw your fur in the garbage or your food in the garbage or whatever the case may be. So the more that everyone works together to keep the showroom clean, the happier the club is at the end when they have to clean it all up. So it's normally a quick process. At the end of our shows, we, especially with RHD, we've been very sanitary. All of our cooping gets bleached down when it comes out of our shed and before it goes back into our shed. When we've been doing 2-day shows, we've been spraying and wiping down all of our equipment between the shows as well. So Saturday show happens, they get, the tables get changed out and then all the equipment gets sprayed down with bleach and water for the next day. All of our carpeting goes home and gets bleached and power washed. Our carpeting is never just rolled up and put back away. It's all sanitized. So we try and keep our equipment costs a lot of money. We try and keep it extra clean. We want our exhibitors to come back. We don't want them, sitting at the table at 9 a.m. and you already smell pee in the rugs. We even put down wee pads on our tables to help make the cleanup a lot quicker as well and less urine on the rugs so the rabbits aren't sitting in it. And we go throughout the day and we'll change the wee pads off the table. So that way the carpets are saved, the rabbits aren't sitting in somebody else's urine. The judges appreciate it, the exhibitors appreciate it. So we're very sanitary with our cleanup and cleaning everything.
And then in addition to that too, like what happens, you have said it basically earlier, but what happens with the show secretary doing paperwork too? Or like what happens with all the paperwork that the writers fill out during the show day?
So all the paperwork goes home with me. And within 30 days of the show, I go through and put all the placings in, add any of the day of shows, make any of the corrections. And then all of that gets sent to the exhibitors as their exhibitor reports. The show reports get sent to the breed club and then also to ARBA, all within that 30-day process.
Let me ask a little bit differently. So as an exhibitor, they get the show report. If they want a class with more than 5 rabbits and 3 exhibitors, or the variety or group or anything that would earn a leg, they would get that in. But oftentimes there's like the list of points on there. What do all those mean?
All the points go to, if you're a member of the National Breed Club, those all get added in for your standings based on your varieties or your herdsman of the year, or however your club does it. Every club does it a little different. So you have to, pay attention to what those points mean basically based on your club. So like I said, every club's different. And for those that, for example, if you're a youth and sometimes you show an open, sometimes certain breed clubs will split your points and you're going to have points in open and you're going to have points in, but there are clubs that do take your open points and will put them into your youth if, say, youth wasn't sanctioned at a show. So for your youth exhibitors, you do need to pay attention to that as well, based on your breed.
When you guys are sending out the show reports, I mean, are you emailing all those? Are you mailing all of them? What do you guys do?
Our show software allows them to all be emailed. That's what we mainly do. It costs the club a lot of money on postage if we mailed them out. I do have a certain few exhibitors that do ask for them to be mailed, whether they don't use a computer, they don't have a printer. We will mail them to them, or if I have a show coming up, right after, I'll bring them to them at the show. But most of it all gets done via email. I think the only other thing that I would add is for, a club that's doing a show, make sure you're respectful of your judges. Don't overwork them, make them feel appreciated so that they come back. I've, heard from many judges that, we won't judge that show because, we're judging 300 plus rabbits and, we don't get compensated. Or a lot of judges have started adding that anything over 250, is X amount of money per head because of shows kind of taking advantage of them. So always be respectful of them in a professional manner and, make them feel appreciated so they come back to your shows. I'm Mackenzie Kratzsch, and this is my class on hosting a successful show on the Rabbit Show.